When you have a spreadsheet with loads of data just like this one, it can be intimidating and you're thinking, God, how can I get to grips with all this data really fast? Now, a simple thing to do is you could do what I've done on the table here, at the very bottom, and put a whole load of calculations in here. So we've got different kind of formulas, kind of quartiles. Now, this is great if you know what you're doing, and I highly recommend this to everyone, but it does mean that you have to learn all these little formulas that exist in Excel to do the work for you. That can take time, and sometimes it's just a step beyond where you are and a step beyond where you want to be. So I'm going to show you something that is absolute magic that will help you understand your data without having to do all of these calculations. And it's called a pivot table. A pivot table is just a way of cross-tabulating data and doing some basic analysis for you. So let's get to scripts. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by selecting all the data that I want to look into. So I'm going to select row 1, zoom down here at the bottom, go to row 101, press down Shift and select. Now this is really great because I'm not including any of this data at the bottom. So all that other calculations, standard deviations and modes and stuff, it's not in there. We're just using the pure data, and that's exactly what we want. So the next thing to do is go to Insert and top left, choose Pivot Table. Click on that and it gives me 2 bits of data it needs. Firstly, it wants to select the range of data, and secondly, it wants to know where to put this pivot table. I've already selected the data, so I don't need to worry about this, and I like going into a new worksheet because frankly, my existing worksheet is so full. So I'm going to click OK. And by the way, all this data I'm using today is freely available, and I will link in the description below for you to download and play along with. So here we are at the pivot table. At the moment, it doesn't sound very exciting, doesn't have much going on, but there's a few things here which we can use to really customize what we're doing. On the right here, we have the pivot table fields, which really drives the tool, and you'll see why it's so important very quickly. In the top area, we have field names. These field names are exactly the same as on our first row here in the data. These are all our column names, so scan, code, age, gender, ethnicity, etc. Now this data is all about the ergonomic measurements of women, so white and Chinese women in the UK. So all of these field names relate to those kind of measurements. We then have rows and we have columns. Now rows and columns work just like in any table, and there are values, that's the cells in the tables. So let me show you how this works to make it easier. I'm looking at the differences in height between Chinese and white women. So the first thing I need is ethnicity. I'm going to drag this down into rows. And here, if I zoom right in, you can see that the row labels have been filled in of white and Chinese. If I put gender in there as well, just drag this down into rows, we see a new area. I'm going to take ethnicity out to make it easier. And we can see that it just says F for female. We only have females, so there's no point in having this. Drag that back out and just take ethnicity back into the rows. So what do I care about ethnicity? I care about height. So I select the height from field name and drag that into values. And straight away, there we are. The cells are filled in with height data. So that's really good. But right now we're seeing something strange. It's saying sum of height, which means all of the combined height of white women is 8.16k, and all of the combined height of Chinese women is 8.14k. That's not really what I want to know. I want to know the average height. So I go over here and the values cell field, there's a small circle with an eye in it. I click on that and it opens up. It should open up. There we are. It should open up a little dialog box saying, right, what do you want? So I'm going to say, well, I want to summarize it as an average. Now there is a thing here saying show data as, and we can have all these like percentage of grand totals and various pieces. You can go into quite some good depth here, but I just want the average height. So click OK, and there I am. So I can see that the average height of a Chinese woman is, 4 millimeters lower than the average height of a Chinese woman. Let's think of something else. So we've got weight. What about the weight? Do Chinese and white women weigh different? So I'm going to drag that into values, release. Again, by default, we've got some. So click on the eye again, brings up our dialog, choose average, and there we are. So we can see that on average, Chinese and white women are about the same height, and we can see that white women are a bit heavier by about 5.5K. That's very interesting. Now we can go further into this and do other things. Now just by clicking on our eye, we can choose minimum, maximum product, standard deviation, which is always good. And one thing I always like to do is look at the count. So I click OK. You can see that we have 50 white women and 50 Chinese women. That's really good because that gives me confidence my data is fair. I haven't got 98 white women and 2 Chinese women. If I did, that'd be really bad because I wouldn't know if those two are average or outliers. But I'm going to assume they are. So I'm just going to take off weight back into my field name, and I'm going to put a bar chart in showing all about the height. The way I'm going to do this is just by clicking on the table we have here, going to the top, insert, and dropping down the bar chart option and choosing bar chart. It's just going to drop it into the table. So I'm going to zoom out, and there we are. So that is a chart I can now resize, do whatever I really like, and that's just going to be something really good that I can put into a report or I can use for inspiration in some work that I'm doing. What about doing something more complex, such as how weight changes over time? So I'm going to go ahead and delete my chart, click back on this table, and I'm going to bring age back into here, but this time I'll drop it in the columns. So what we have here is that the columns, the age, has become points there all along, and the ethnicity is staying as rows. Average height is staying the same. Now we wouldn't expect height to change with age particularly, so I'm going to drag height back into my area and think about something which is more interesting. So let's find a measurement here which might change with age, something like waist. That's bust, that's collar, chin, elbow height, foot length. There's about 126 odd bits of information. Shoulder height, mid-thigh, neck circumference, sheet, seat, shoulder, slope, side back, stomach bit. Stomach circumference, that sounds quite good. I'm going to take that as stomach circumference max into values. Click on the eye, choose average, click OK, and here we have it. Now, that is really good, but unfortunately I'm not very good at looking at this data and understanding it, so I want to put a line chart in. Again, I'm clicking on the table, click insert, drop down on this line chart icon, and choose a line chart. Now, you've got 3 main kinds of line chart. One is just a pure line chart, one is a stacked, and one is 100% stacked. You don't need to know the difference between these, but I recommend just going for number 1 here. This is the kind of line chart which we are all familiar with and is easiest to work with. At the moment, this is not a very good line chart because it's just telling us that the average is it's higher for white women and lower for Chinese. That's interesting, I guess, but I want to know more about how it changes over time. So for this, I need to swap around my legends and my ethnicity. To do that, I just drag ethnicity from axis category, which was the rows, and drop it into legend, which was the columns. So thing to note is that this field's information, it changes depending on if you're looking on a chart or on the table. Anyhow, I'm just going to take age from legend and drop that into axis category. And here we have the item changing over time. And if I just zoom out, table a bit, you can see how, yep, there we are. That's our data over there. So is this particularly good? Let's have a look. Now, I don't know if this data is representative, which is, I know we have 50 white, 50 Chinese, but do we have evenly distributed across the ages, or are they all bulking around one area? So for that, I'm going to go on to values, click on I, and this time I'm going to choose count again. Now I can see that we've only got one Chinese woman who's 25, one who's 28, one who's 30, and no one who's 26, 27. So for this case, I'm going to make myself life very easy. I'm going to drop down here, and I'm going to say, well, I don't want anyone who is 25 because that's just misleading. 28 again is misleading. 30 is misleading. I'm going to also drop out 26 and 24. Actually, you know what, 27 as well. So that all the zeros are gone, or the low value, 1 values are gone. In our ideal world, you might have 15 or 30 or maybe 100 per cell. This will do for now, it's just an exercise. So I'm closing that down, clicking on here, and going from count back onto average, clicking OK. And there we go. So what this is showing me is that there's the Chinese population is tending to increase slightly between 20 and 23 with their waist, which is putting on fat. The white population tend to have a reducing waist circumference over time. Now, this could tell me that the sample is very biased. Maybe we got people with more body fat in the 20-year-old sample. So maybe it's just kind of, I don't know, we could have sampled from different kinds of populations. Maybe the older people are more athletic, and maybe the younger people don't really do any sport at all. That could explain it. So we do have to ask questions about our data and our samples before drawing conclusions from this. But if we had more data, we had a longer range and a larger sample, we'd start to see trends that are appearing. Now, we can do that with charts. Now we've got chart design. There's a whole load of chart elements, including trend lines. So I'm just going to add some trend lines in, and I'm going to choose trend line for the white population. And you can see that the trend line just about appears there. If I pop down. Now, let's pop it in for the white Chinese population as well. Trend line linear for Chinese. Okay. And we'll see that, yeah, the trend for the Chinese population is for the waist circumference to increase, whereas the white population to decrease. You know, we can spend a long time going through this, but that's just basic. So here we are. We've gone through and created a pivot table from our data. That's let us see some quite great insights about averages or total sums or the number of people. We've managed to create charts, create line charts. We've done trend prediction over time, and we see that the points are as they are here. All of this has been done without knowing any equations for Excel. So it's really great to just dive in, start comparing, start getting to grips with your data fast. I've been Dr. Chris Parker. If you found this video useful, please like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And if there's something that you want to have answered, if there's a question that you have, please comment below and ask for a video. I'll get back to you directly. Thank you very much.